We on?
Salaki, I'm gonna move it a little closer for the audio, so you know.
Yep. All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we'd like to give all praise and glory to
YAHAWAH,
BAHASHAM,
YAHAWASHI,
BAHASHAM,
BAHASHAM.
Double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone that tell us his truth. And salutations to the earthly elect that's around the four corners of the globe. And the elect begins with 144,000. Yahweh, the world ignorantly calls God and Jehovah. BAHASHAM is in the name. YAHAWASHI, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. The Rakakwa doctrine is the Holy Spirit. For the brothers of the great millstone Chicago camp. On the brother I will join with.
I Badia.
Come back at you, brothers and sisters of the household of faith, of the hopeful right to life with another lesson. And Lord, we hope this lesson be edifying through the spirit and power of YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI. Once again, we hope this lesson is edifying. You know, we're just gonna really entitle this lesson, you know, with the what's that just to make sure I'm quoting it right. It says the antebellum mansion, you know, known as the nottoway plantation, is gonna be, you know, recently that whole plantation, as far as the mansion ultimately burned down. That's gonna be the whole of America, man. You know, these different plantations that Jake served, you know, things of that nature, and primarily this plantation that we're talking about, the mansion being burned down. That's how the entirety of America is going to be, man. Because what, you know, hey, Jake, whether you're a so-called Negro, Latino, Native American, a speckled bird, you know, we built this place up, man. You know, from the ground up, and ultimately, what that the fire that ultimately happened on Nottoway Plantation, that mansion that ultimately, you know, was burned down to the ground. That's how the whole of America is going to be like, man. You know, I'm gonna just get into this article real quick. It says, this was in Louisiana from Fox News. It says America's largest remaining antebellum mansion burns down in devastating fire. And right, in reports that said, you know, basically they put the fire out at one point, and ultimately it was reignited again. You know, and that just shows you, you know, the power of YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI, man. And because we're coming into a time where ultimately what the Lord YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI is visiting Edom, man. You know, these different spots that Jake ultimately built up, man, they're going to come crashing down, man. You know, because we're at the end of this man's society. I'm going to just read a little bit of it. We're not going to read the whole thing, but it says historic Nottoway Plantation, the largest antebellum mansion in the U.S., burned to the ground this week after a fire broke out on Thursday. There have been no reports of injuries or deaths connected to the fire. It says fire crews worked to extinguish the flames, with water reportedly being poured onto the rubble as long as 18 hours after the fire started, according to Fox 8. And it says, as of Saturday, the cause of the fire was still under investigation. It says some staff members stated that they had gone into the museum and there was smoke. When they returned to the whole room was in flames. It's a particular point I want to get into here. Just basically shows you, hey, the arrogancy of Esau and the disrespect that Esau Edom shows to our people, right? It says, let me see, can I actually find it? Let's see, because it talks about how ultimately, you know, they be having weddings on this plantation, man. Yeah. You know, Esau Edom be having weddings and different things of that nature on this plantation, man. And ultimately, it's a mockery to our people, man. But I'm gonna just read from right here. If I can't find it, that's okay. You know, Lord willing, I'm gonna end up doing another lesson down the road. But it says the U.S. Department of the Interior records cited by Axios showed that Randolph owned 155 slaves and 6,200 acres of land by 1860. In addition to the luxurious mansion, the property also features several trees that are over 100 years old, several of which are more than 120 years old, according to the Nottoway Plantation website. You got to understand that Jake was hanged from these trees also, man. But here's the point I want to get into. It says in modern times, the mansion and the surrounding property function as a museum, resort, and wedding venue. Nottoway Plantation's website states that it's on September on Slack. It says that it's Saturday on 31 that is sat on 31 acres, which included 40 overnight rooms, a bar, a restaurant, event space, a pool, tennis course, and more. You know, this, you know, the few things I wanted to get into. You know, Esau Edom's arrogancy, man, having weddings. You know, where Jake was ultimately slain at, man. You know, having events on the plantation where Jake was hanged from, man. And ultimately, the burning of this Nottoway Plantation, the mansion that was caught on fire, man, is going to be like the whole of America, man. But y'all brothers got it, Salaki.
It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, and verse 33, right? Because like the bro going into this, you said the plantation,
yeah,
burned down, And the whole of America is gonna get hit with nukes, man. It's a fire is gonna arise here in Babylon, man, from those nukes. All right, the chariots, the heavenly fire as well, and it's judgment upon Babylon for touching Israel, the apple of the Lord's eye, the captivity, judgment upon Edom. So thus says the scriptures. This place is gonna get hit with fire. It's gonna be like a desert, man. All right, So this the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, in verse 33. It says, "Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were pressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go." Right, so because we still found in this man's hand, still getting oppressed, etc. And they're gonna come down with wrath, man. Ultimately, the Lord gonna intervene. Verse 34 says, "Their Redeemer is strong. YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM of hosts is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon." Right, Babylon the great, man, the daughter of Babylon. This place ruled by Edom. Verse 35, "A sword is upon the Chaldeans, said Yahweh BAHASHAM, and upon the inhabitants of Babylon, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men. A sword is upon the liars." And in Deuteronomy, the scriptures say that all the enemies of Israel be found to be liars now. So it says, "And they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon their horses and upon their chariots." Right, the warfare of Edom, because Edom gonna try to fight back against the Lord. So, nah, man, the Lord gonna conquer and overcome all of them, man. Sitting upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her, and they shall become as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is the land of great graven images. They are mad upon their idols. Therefore the wild beasts of the desert with the wild beasts of the island shall dwell there, and the owl shall dwell therein. It shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. As the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and the neighbor cities thereof, said Yahweh BAHASHAM, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell there. So, the Lord, that's ultimately the judgment of Babylon, is to get judgment as in Sodom and Gomorrah, man. It's spiritually called Sodom as well. So it's going to receive that same judgment of what? Getting hit by fire, man. This place, and places around the earth, man. The entire earth is about to be cleansed by fire, man. And the whole of America is going to be dried up desert land because of the nukes, man.
That's right.
So that's the ultimate the judgment of Babylon, man, to become just like the broke went into this plantation. Yeah. Burn to the ground, man.
I got one. You got it, I'm gonna go after you.
Okay, Khan. This is Obadiah 1:15. "For the day of Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. For as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain," which is what? The children of Israel, "so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been." So there's going to be a recompense and a punishment for touching the children of Israel, touching the apple of Yahweh BAHASHAM's eye. And Revelation says what they made merry. They sold.
They gave gifts to one another.
Right, and made merry over us. Okay, like the bro said, they're celebrating weddings on this place where they used to torment Jake, had Jake in hardcore slavery. But hey, it says they're gonna drink continually for doing that, beginning with Esau Edom.
Right. Just to add on to that point, not only the plantations, that's the Lord ultimately burned down. Just speaking about this one, but hey, Esau Edom as a whole here in America and other places too is catching hell, man. The Lord is basically what pleading our cause, man. Hey, I had watched a video before I actually got over here, whatnot. Before I picked up the brother also. how they, the Jake woman was talking about, like in these different sundown towns, tornadoes is fucking Esau eat them up, man.
Saw that.
94% of these Edomites' homes is getting destroyed by these different tornadoes and natural disasters, man.
It was the population of those towns was like 94%.
About 94%, yeah, 94% Edomites. Hey, so the Lord is pleading our cause, man. We're seeing the downfall of our enemy right before our eyes, man. And what's going to be that last, that great judgment that's to come upon this place, that's to really, to take Esau, Edom out of power, the destruction of Babylon the Great, which is America, man. But you had some more to that, brother? Or?
Oh, that was the point in that.
I got one to back you up. This is the book of Numbers 35 and 33. It says, so ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land. And right, our ancestors, our forefathers' bones, the blood of our forefathers is scattered throughout the soils of America, man, whether it be Judah all the way down to Issachar, man. You got Ephraim, that's over here. You got Issachar, you got Manasseh, you got Simeon, you got Levi. All our brothers and sisters' blood was spilled upon this land, man. And it has to be a judgment for that, man. And who ultimately did that? These Edomites, man. And these other nations also, but who had a hand, the majority of all, that our people went through, man. Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. It says, so you shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land. All right, this blood is the foul. This land is the foul blood. And the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Right, because ultimately we know that fire is that ultimate cleansing agent, but ultimately what the Lord is going to set us up to bring these devils down into captivity. We're going to spare their blood, man. What's that in Psalms? What's that, 140 or 139, I believe? How it talks about batting their kings, with fetters of iron, and we're going to, dash their babies against the stone, man.
137.
Yeah, Psalms 137, yep.
It's another one, Psalms 149.
Okay. But y'all brothers got it. That was pretty
the ones you quoted.
Yeah,
you got the song.
Yeah, I got Psalms 137 and 8. It reads, O daughter of Babylon, which is America, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewarded thee, as thou hast served us. Mm-hmm. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones.
That's exactly right, man. Hey, that happened a lot to the Northern Kingdom, man, the Taino Indians. Because what the Spaniards ultimately do when they came over to the side of the world, started with what? Christopher Colon, who is an Amalekite, who is a so-called Jew, Jewish, because, if that term ish is pertaining to, man, they're not the real people of the Lord. But that's another lesson for another day. But ultimately, followed by Christopher Colon, you had the Spaniards ultimately came over here. What they would do to the Taino Indian children was what? They come from the Northern Kingdom. They had basically grabbed them by their ankles and slammed, their head against a rock. And babies' bodies be so fragile. And ultimately, what happened? What happened to those babies' bodies, man? They explode. Not only that, what did Esau Edom do to our people, man? Hey, they was playing bury our people within the ground. Play different sick games. Decapitate our people, different things of that nature, man.
That's the devil right there.
Yep. And we got a day called Christopher Columbus Day, which is total blasphemy, man. That's why these devils is paying back right before our eyes, man. The Lord is what? The Lord is delivering judgments upon our enemies, man. Yep.
That's the devil right there.
But you got the other Psalms, don't you?
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 149 and verse 5. Says, let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of the Most High be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise thee, YAHAWASHI. So, pretty much, man, to serve the Lord is to what? Put the creation in subjection, man. Like YAHAWASHI is about to be crowned king. He about to receive his glory. It says, and those that be with him. Say he gonna be revealed, and those that be with him, man. So what his joint heirs, the kings underneath YAHAWASHI and the nation of Israel, man. So those saints, those that the Israelites, starting with the 144,000 and 1/3, all right, is about to receive eternal kingdom, you know. But ultimately, that day of doom got to come first, you know.
I got one just real quick. This is the book of Jeremiah 49. I'm gonna start at 10. The verse I want to get to is verse 12, but this is the book of Jeremiah 49 and 10. It says, "But I have made Esau bare, and I have uncovered his secret places. He shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbor, and he is not." Right. So the Lord is ultimately what? The different secrets that Esau Edom has been holding for a long time. They're being exposed by what? The mouth of the prophets, man. The Lord put the spirits on the prophets to basically expose the secret dealings. The things that Esau Edom is doing behind the scenes. All these different things is getting revealed, man. Esau Edom is getting exposed. And it says his seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. Right? Because even in the scriptures it says, he is not in trouble as other men. But hey, that's about to change, man. Esau Edom is getting exposed. The Lord is ultimately touching this devil, And it says on verse 11, it says, "Leave thy fatherless children, I will preserve them alive, and let thy widows trust in me." Here's the point I wanted to get into. It says, "For thus saith Yahawah, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken," right? Us Israelites, man, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, because we went off, we served other gods, and we committed all types of wickedness against YAHAWASHI. That's ultimately how we went into slavery, man. What is that cup? That cup of slavery, that cup of torment. We ultimately had to pay for what we did. We transgressed the law, statutes, and commandments of YAHAWASHI, so we ultimately had to go through that punishment. It says, "Drink of the cup have assuredly drunken, and art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it." Right. So Esau Edom has to surely drink of that cup, man. And we're the Lord's chosen people, man. We had to drink of that cup. We had to go through the punishments. How much more the base of all men? Something that the Lord doesn't care about, man. They're going to surely drink of that cup, man. They're going to go through those punishments. They're going to go through everything we went through plus more, man. Because in what's that Revelations? It talks about deliver unto her double. And that's ultimately what's going to happen, man. This is just the start of Esau's judgment, man. But y'all bros got it.
You had something on that?
Yeah, this is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7. "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way." So at the Apostle Paul's time, it was still the mystery of iniquity, because it wasn't really known who Esau was, but the Roman Empire was in power. But there was still a lot that had to happen before Esau became revealed, which is happening right now in these last days.
Right, because what ancient Rome had to fall, and Esau Edom had to come back into power. Because I believe it's Revelation 13 talks about that deadly one was healed, talking about the revival of the Roman Empire. What is the revival of the Roman Empire? America coming back, man. So Esau Edom had to come back into power, and everything that we're seeing right now had to be fulfilled, man. And everybody is finding out who Esau Edom is. The different things that he's doing, man. Hey, so he's ultimately being revealed in this time, as the brother was saying.
The border of wicked, he will build, but I will throw down.
Yep.
The border of wickedness. And verse 8, 2 Thessalonians 2 and 8. "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord YAHAWASHI shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming."
Right, because it ultimately begins with us preaching this word. And YAHAWASHI, Yahweh's going to send his son YAHAWASHI back to ultimately to literally take this devil out of power. Because what's that? Isaiah 47 says, "I will not meet thee as a man." Ultimately that's what's getting ready to happen, man. The Lord is going to pull back his word, and ultimately YAHAWASHI is going to come back and take what is his, man. Take this devil out of power, because in Revelations it talks about how YAHAWASHI had many crowns upon his head, man. Who's that main crown he's going to take? That main source of rulership he's going to take? Esau Edom's, man. That's why 2 Ezra 6 says, "For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth," man.
And even the name Jacob in Hebrew, Yahakwab, to hold the heel, man.
Yeah.
To supplant.
Yep.
So Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of it that followed.
I got one to back that up. Actually, this book of Lamentations 4:21. It says, "Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwelleth in the land of Uz." It says the cup, right? That cup. What is that cup, man? That cup of slavery, that cup of torment. As I read in that Jeremiah, was that 49 and 12, 13 and 14? How it talks about we had to surely drink of that. They're going to surely drink of that cup, man. it says, the cup also shall pass on to thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. And it's ultimately what? Beginning with those curses, man. Deuteronomy 30:7. Ultimately what? Esau, Edom, ultimately what? Partaking in those curses, man. Now all of a sudden their woman is leaving them. Now all of a sudden there's their kids and children that's strung out on drugs, man. And that's only the beginning, man. It says the cup also shall pass on to thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked, right? Esau, Edom is getting exposed, man. As I read also in that Jeremiah, what's that 49 says Esau is made bare. Esau is getting them exposed. And how is that happening? By the way of the word first, man. It says, verse 22, it says, the punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity, right? Because it's the last captivity of the Israelites. Esau, Edom is the last heathen rule to rule before what? The establishment of the kingdom of heaven, man. So what? Esau, Edom is the last heathen ruler to ultimately rule before the coming of the kingdom of heaven. It says, the punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion, right? This is our last captivity. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. And why is that, man? Because what? The law, statutes, and commandments is going to be put in our inward part once the elect is delivered. And all of our people is going to be all righteous, man. So we're establishing the kingdom, man. Every single one, the 2/3 coming back into the kingdom. You're going to have the 144,000. You're going to have the Nubu Multi, which is the 1/3. The 2/3 is eventually going to come back in the kingdom. We're going to all be righteous. So what? There's not going to be any need for us to go into captivity because what? We're not going to sin. The reason why we were always going to captivity because what? We will trespass, serve other gods, and ultimately sin against YAHAWASHI. But since the law, statutes, and commandments are going to be in our inward parts, we're going to keep the law, statutes, and commandments 100%. There's no need for us to go back into slavery, man, because the Lord used slavery as what? A punishment for us transgressing the laws, statutes, and commandments, man. It says, he will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. And that's what's happening right now with these burning of this plantation, man. The destruction of Esau's neighborhoods with, these different natural disasters that the Lord is sending their way. And this is only the beginning, man. But any closing precepts, bros?
I had that Revelation you quoted.
Okay.
It's the book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works, in the cup which she hath filled to her, in the cup which she hath filled to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. Rejoicing. Esau, rejoice. America, had its time to rule. It oppressed the children of Israel. America had a time, man. Now the Lord is about to judge its works, man. And so, how much he lived delicious over what? On the blood of the saints, man. The blood of the Israelites, man. It says, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and she shall see no sorrow. Right, because what Esau, Edom think that their house is going to continue forever, man, ultimately. It says, verse 8, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Yahawah power who judgeth her. Mm-hmm. So YAHAWASHI is about to judge this place, Babylon the Great, which is America. Mystery Babylon is America. And it's going to be burned with fire via the nukes, the heavenly host, the chariots, YAHAWASHI coming with fire. Going to be a grand judgment from which the elect going to be delivered out of, Thus saith the Lord, the same way the MOTB coming to pass, even the salvation, so much more, this YAHAWASHI, the Heavenly Father, man, His will.
Hey, Madon, you can grab one. We can probably close out with that when we get these last few precepts. That Baruch, I believe it's in Baruch 4, how it talks about measurable all the cities that have afflicted thee, But this is the book of Jeremiah 17 and 18. It says, let them be confounded that persecute me. It says, but let not me be confounded. Let them be dismayed, but let not me be dismayed. Bring upon them the day of evil and destroy them with double destruction, as written in Revelation 18. Render our Torah double. Hey, Esau Edom is going to get that double destruction, man. Because it's a lot of things that Esau Edom has to pay for, man, that he hasn't paid for. What? Going back to what? The Grecian Empire, going back to even before that, man, the different scuffles that we had with Esau Edom, man, because it talks about, we shall have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Even during the Babylonian captivity, man, Esau Edom had a part of bringing us down, man. Doing those little, basically helping the Babylonians take us down, man. You had what's that, the Grecian Empire, which I talked about before, Alexander the Crete, ultimately rising up. And even after that, you had his 4 generals, man. And then you had their seed line, man, Antiochus Epiphanes, different things of that nature, man, putting hell on Jake. The Roman Empire, what's that in Psalms, how it says, raise it, even towards the foundation thereof, man. So Esau Edom haven't paid for these different accounts that I'm actually talking about, man, that he's going to pay back all at one time, man, with the destruction of his kingdom and ultimately what? Him going into captivity, man, for 1,000 years. And ultimately him what? Getting erased, from the planet Earth, man. The Lord is ultimately what? Going to do away with the nation of Edom. You got something up?
Okay. Deuteronomy 30:7. And the Lord Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee, and thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahweh and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. And the Lord Yahweh BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI thy power will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land for good. For Yahweh will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that restoration that's promised to us, through YAHAWASHI, through the sacrifice of YAHAWASHI, that the remnant, the hopeful elect, can obtain salvation, obtain those new bodies, and we can once again rule once again over this earth as we're supposed to, because this earth was created for us, and these heathen were created to be our servants, and everything will be set back in order.
Yeah. And at Baruch 4, Adon, you can probably start at verse 18. We could just read down. It's a lot of meaning in this Baruch 4.
It's the book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 18. For he that brought these plagues upon you will deliver you from the hands of your enemies.
Right, because it was ultimately YAHWASHI that put us in this situation. It's going to be YAHWASHI to deliver us out the situation. We can't deliver ourselves, man.
Verse 19, go your way, O my children. Go your way, for I am left desolate. I have put off the clothing of peace and put upon me the sackcloth of my prayer. I will cry unto the everlasting in my days.
And right, that's what the righteous is doing, man. Even to this day, man, we're pleading to YAHWASHI to deliver us out this situation, man. Just like the righteous of old did, and even those righteous spirits, even of our people that died, man, it's pleading with YAHWASHI to Baba Bushah come destroy this place, man.
Says verse 21, be of good cheer, O my children. Cry unto the Lord, YAHWASHI YAHWASHI, and he will deliver you from the power and hand of the enemies.
Right, because we know in that, Romans, the 12th chapter says our salvation is nearer than we believe, man. The Lord has given us signs of what to look out for upon his arrival, man. And he's going to deliver us, man, because we're seeing these said signs that the Lord talked about since the beginning. Even YAHWASHI talked about 2,000 years ago, man.
Verse 22, for my hope is in the everlasting, that he will save you, and joy is come unto me from the Holy One, because of the mercy which shall soon come unto you from the everlasting, our Savior.
Mm-hmm.
For I sent you out with mourning and weeping, but the Most High, Yahweh, will give you to me again with joy and gladness forever.
Right, how did the Lord send us out with mourning and weeping, man? Hey, us going into captivity, man, because us, as we talked about previously, us breaking the law, statutes, commandments, trespassing, the Lord basically exiled us from the land of Israel, and we were ultimately delivered into the hands of the enemies, man. But it says what? He says, unto me again with joy and gladness forever, because ultimately we're going to always, once the Lord deliver us this time, man, we're going to always be with YAHWASHI YAHWASHI, man. We're not going to transgress anymore.
Verse 24, like as now the neighbors of Zion have seen your captivity, so shall they see surely your salvation from our power. which shall come upon you with great glory and brightness of the everlasting.
Right, that's why Wisdom of Solomon 5 says, what? The strangers of our salvation, man. Hey, this is going to be a sight to behold. Hey, from these Edomites all the way down to the wicked of our people, man. They're going to watch us being delivered by what the world ignorantly calls UFOs. The chariots of YAHAWASHI, man. And then they're going to know, man, we fucked up. We touched the apple of the Lord's eye, man.
The brightness of his coming.
Yeah, the
every
brightness of his coming,
every eye shall see him.
Yep.
In his God form, man.
That's right.
YAHAWASHI.
Baruch 4:25, my children, suffer patiently the wrath that has come upon you from Yahweh, for thine enemy hath persecuted thee, but surely thou shalt see his destruction and shalt tread upon his neck.
And how is we seeing the destruction of the so-called white man? It's still more to come, a lot more to come. But how is we seeing this destruction right now? Him losing pieces of his kingdom, him basically losing important landmarks that he ultimately made Jacob build. The curse is coming upon them. Their neighborhoods getting destroyed. The curse is coming upon their asses, man. Hey, so what? We're beginning to see what? The destruction of Esau, Edom, man.
Yeah, the drums of the third war.
Yep.
The nations rising up. All right. Verse 26, Baruch 4:26. My delicate ones have gone rough ways and were taken away as a flock caught of the enemies.
Right.
Be of good comfort, O my children, and cry unto the Most High, for ye shall be remembered of him that brought these things upon you.
Right, because the YAHAWASHI has never forgot his people, man. That's why I believe it's Romans 9 that says, "Had the Lord cast away his people, Yahweh forbid." Hey, so the Lord, because the Lord is a man that he shall not lie, man. Because what he even promised Abraham, man, that the covenant, given, to the nation, it started with Abraham all the way down, man. The promises is ultimately given to Israel, man. The Lord has not forgot about that, man.
The power of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yep.
He will have mercy on Jacob and yet choose Israel.
That's right.
This is the book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 28. For as it was your mind to go astray from the Most High, so being returned, seek him 10 times more.
All right, that's just what we're ultimately doing, man. We fell away. All of us as a people, we fell away, man, from YAHAWASHI. So what we're doing, man, the Lord gave us his truth. And since the Lord gave us the truth, we're seeking him 10 times more, man, for our transgression, the things we did, and not in this life, but our past life, understanding that. So we're ultimately seeking YAHAWASHI 10 times more, asking for that mercy, asking for that deliverance from the hands of our enemies, man.
Baruch 4:29, for he that hath brought these plagues upon you shall bring you everlasting joy with your salvation.
And that's exactly right, man. The Lord delivering us from the hands of our enemies, man. And that's what we're all seeking for, man. Us that has this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, man. We're looking for Yahweh to send his son YAHAWASHI back to deliver us from this nightmare, man.
Baruch 4:30, take a good heart, O Jerusalem, for he that gave thee that name will comfort thee.
Right, the names of YAHAWASHI, man. That's why the scripture says what? The name of the Lord is a strong tower, the righteous one into it and is safe, man.
Proverbs 18:10.
Yep. Hey, so those names are very important, man.
Baruch 4:31, miserable are they that afflicted thee and rejoiced at thy fall.
It says, miserable are they that afflicted thee and rejoiced at thy fall. Who afflicted us, man? The rest of these other nations, man. But starting with Esau, Edom. Hey, the Psalms 83 crew, man. It lists all, our enemies, man. All our adversaries, man.
All the other heathen nations.
Yep. And it says, Jeremiah 30:16 says, what? All that devoured thee shall be devoured. Every last one of them shall go into captivity, man. So the Lord has not forgotten, man. The Lord, all this time, has just been writing down receipts, man. Oh, he did this. Oh, they did that. Oh, he did this. And the Lord has been taking account of these different things ever since the beginning, man.
Baruch 4:32, miserable are the cities which thy children serve. Miserable is she that received thy sons.
Right, it says, miserable are the cities which thy children serve. Right, did we not serve in these different states, man? Louisiana, Texas. Hey, even in the North, man, we was in captivity, man. Because ultimately in the North, right, probably what was that? After the Civil War, man, everything just became industrial, man. And even in the North, man, you have a lot more Jakes being lynched up here, man. The home of the Ku Klux Klan, what's that, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken? Jake is getting put to death, whether it be North, whether it be South, whether it be the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, whether it be up there in New York, Connecticut, whether it be way down south, whether it be Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Virginia, South Carolina, different things of that nature. Jake is constantly been, as we speak right now, it's a Jake that's getting lynched right now. As we speak right now, it's a Jake getting brutally tortured, brutally killed right now. whether it be by law enforcement, whether it be, you know, some Jakes taken to the woods and lynched, man. Hey, these things are going on to this very day, man. You know, our women is getting, you know, a lot of our women is missing, man. You know, hey, this is what Jake has to go through on an everyday basis. What about YAHAWASHI takes account of every single thing that happens. Every Israelite that was ultimately killed on the soils of America, man, is being taken account for now.
Baruch 4:33, for as she rejoiced at thy ruin and was glad of thy fall, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation.
Now you got Edomites making YouTube videos how it's hard to live, you know, and things of that nature. But this is only the beginning, man. You know, those curses coming upon our enemies. You know, hey, Esau Edom's own people turning up against each other, man. That's that Egyptian against Egyptian, man. The Lord is putting division within the Edomites. You know, the curse, you can read Deuteronomy the 28 chapter. What's that, verse 15 and verse 68? The curse that we went through as a people, they're going through it. You know, but the Lord is going to amp it up, man.
Baruch 4:34, for I will take away the rejoicing of her great multitude, and her pride shall be turned into mourning.
Right. You know, that pride of America, man, is being cut down, man. You know, these Edomites are starting to feel it, man. They thought Donald Trump was going to make some big change for them, man. Now they're complaining about Donald Trump now, the golden age of America. They thought they was going back to the golden age of America, but no, that's not how it's like. Because prior to Donald Trump, you know, taking office, they was prideful as hell when Donald Trump, you know, became, what's that, the 46 or 47 president?
47.
The 47 president. They was happy, yeah, Donald Trump is back in office. We're heading towards the golden age of America. But look what's happening right now, man. Their pride is being cut in half, man, of what Donald Trump is doing, man. But ultimately, see how about YAHAWASHI controlling the minds of these kings, man. Even the ones behind the scenes, the elites of this society, man.
Baruch 4:35, for a fire shall come upon her from the everlasting, long to endure, and she shall be inhabited of devils for a great time.
Because I believe it's in Isaiah 19. I could be wrong. How it talks about this place shall not be dwelt from generation to generation. You know, this place is going to be, you know, basically inhabited by desert creatures, man. This place, nothing is ever going to be rebuilt on the soils of America ever again, man. America is going to be known as the biggest desert on the earth.
Isaiah 13.
Isaiah 13, about the water.
Baruch 4:36, O Jerusalem, look about thee toward the east, and behold the joy that cometh unto thee from the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
Lo, thy sons come, whom thou sentest away. They come gathered together from the east to the west by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the glory of YAHAWASHI.
And we're being gathered by this word, man. You know, how ultimately was waking up by the way of the word that YAHAWASHI, you know, gave, you know, starting with that Abu Bivens, gave it to, you know, Elder YAHAWAH, you know, our elders and apostles' elders, all the way down, man. You know, the different heads of, you know, whether it be Chicago, whether it be New York, you know, the different heads that we see nowadays teaching the truth. YAHAWASHI, we're being gathered by the word, man. The Lord set up these different elder apostle men to teach us the word, and we're being gathered by what? The way of the word. That's the Ezekiel 37 chapter, man. You know, the word is basically what? You know, bringing, you know, those dry bones, you know, we're coming back to life by the way of the word, man. You know, and that's also what we're seeing right now with us rising, man. Hey, 2 Ezra 6 and 9, I always got to quote as one of my favorite, you know, scriptures to quote. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follows. So Esau, Edom is losing his world, his rulership, and Jacob, you know, 12 tribes of Israel, starting with the elect, man. Because what's going to start with YAHAWASHI, man? Well, we're gaining our world, man.
That's right.
You know,
we're eating that feast in the presence of our enemies.
Yep.
How's it say? The table, Salaki.
I was quoted up.
You know, he's prepared a table for us in the presence of our enemies.
Let me see. Yeah, well, that's ultimately what's happened, though, man. The Lord is what? Bringing his people back together, starting with the elect, man. What's that, Psalms 20?
23 and 5.
Psalms 23 and 5. Let's grab it. We can probably close out with that one. Let me grab it real quick. This is the book of Psalms 23 and verse 5. It says, "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil." It says, "My cup runneth over," right? Because even what our enemies are seeing, what the Lord gathering his people, man. You know, the Lord is seeing that we're being gathered by the word, man. And what even in Revelations, what's that? The 11th chapter says, you know, we stood in basically terrible fear fell upon them, which ultimately saw us, man.
They can't do shit about it.
Yep. It says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord Yahweh forever. And right, because ultimately once we be perfected, man, the law, statutes, commandments being our inward parts, and we're never going to disconnect from the Lord ever again, man. And this is where we're at, man. The downfall of our enemies and the rise of the 12 tribes of Israel, man. But ended off right there. Lord, when we hope this lesson was edifying, we'll end up giving all praise and glory to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, Kakodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone that taught us the truth, and salutations to the hopefully elect that's around the four corners of the globe. Lord, when we hope this lesson was edifying, to next time, Kwam Yasharallah, Shalom, the Baba Ball.
Shalom.